Lincoln Groves. I work for the SAS Institute, and I'm based in the office in Cary, North Carolina. Within SAS, we're a large organization, and I actually work within the education division, more specifically SAS academic programs, which I like to think of as like being the Peace Corps of SAS. We basically exist to provide free resources for our academic partners to help professors get analytics into their classroom. And your question as to why, how, role. So currently I manage a team of analytical training consultants, and this puts me in a space of a working manager. So within that, I perform a number of different roles. One part of my role is to be a coach, to really kind of lead my trainers and advocate for them and get them excited to do our various engagements. One part's going to be a trainer, so I still get up in front of classrooms and teach advanced analytical topics, and then also just strategic thinking. So helping lead the group in terms of what's next in terms of education, how we think about engaging people, especially say in this COVID environment where the world's changed. How do we make it a little bit more relevant in terms of getting people not only excited to join us for some training, but getting them to stick around. In terms of why I chose this role, I think it's interesting that in terms of my narrative and going through this day in the life, and me think about a number of different things, of which this is one of them. Sometimes the role chooses you. So the short answer to that is SAS has been the backbone of everything that I've done empirically since 2000. So I started coding way back then, so 21 years now, which I don't feel that old, but I guess I am, I'm middle-aged. So at many also junctures in my life, I've had the ability to teach, to lead workshops, to be on that education side of things. The longer answer is I completed my PhD in 2015. Then I took a postdoc, which put me in both DC, so it was a joint appointment in a Department of Health and Human Services, and then I was out in Wisconsin via the Institute for Research on Poverty, and split time between the two, and I was preparing for a career in public policy research. We had a 2016 election that went in a different direction in terms of their focus on public policy research. So the market kind of dried up after that in terms of federal funding. A lot of research in the United States is driven by the federal government, and a lot of those resource streams dried up, and or it was hard to convert to become a Fed. So I had to pivot a little bit. So I have these analytical skills. Again, SAS is something I'd been doing for a long time. This position popped up, the chance to work with academics. I applied and they contacted me, and I guess to say the rest is history. But I never had it in mind that this was exactly the role that I wanted to do. It was just, it combined a lot of things that I was doing anyways, and I feel pretty fortunate that sometimes you just iterate in life and things work out. So my first love is going to be economics. So I finished my bachelor's degree in 2000. So I have a bachelor in science and economics from Binghamton University in upstate New York. And then I worked in industry for a while. So I'm not your traditional kind of PhD that might have gone straight from undergrad to graduate school. I worked for a while, had some student loan debt, right? And I wanted to pay that off, which was pretty sweet. So I got my company at the time to help pay for a master's degree. So I did a little double duty action, night school while working full time, which was a lot of work. But I ended up getting a master's in applied economics from Johns Hopkins University. They have a DC campus. So I just walked up a couple blocks and took classes there at night, and then kept working my full-time consulting gig at that point in time. And then once I got the master's degree, I still had an itch for education. I really liked doing applied research. I wanted to learn more. Really started to focus on public policy. Didn't want to necessarily stay in economic consulting, which I was doing at the time. So I applied for PhD programs. And then in 2011, I went to Syracuse University and I completed the PhD in public administration in 2015. It depends on the day. And I think that's true of most people kind of at the management middle career part of your life, just in terms of we wear lots of different hats. The question is like, am I teaching? So for example, I'm leading a 3-hour workshop tomorrow. So a good chunk of my week is to make sure that I actually have all the knowledge loaded up in memory and that I don't look silly tomorrow on camera. So that when it's teaching, it's very much focused on content in terms of not only reviewing the content, but really getting focused on how I'm messaging it to that particular audience. As a manager, I mean, it's a lot of one-on-one and development, right? So next week, as I take off that teacher hat and I put on the manager hat, I'll loop back with the teams, check in, see how they're doing, try to enable and find out what kind of roadblocks they have and where they're struggling. And then I'm still an individual contributor. As a working manager, I really love having the ability to still create new assets, to code. I mean, a good day for me at times is putting on headphones and sitting down and coding for 6 or 8 hours. I still really love that part. I don't want to do it all the time. And I feel like as careers evolve, you have this ability to wear multiple hats. So yeah, it'll be one of those three in some kind of mixture throughout the week. I think that I've thought about like my ideal job. It would probably be like 30 to 40% research, probably 20% presenting, and then 30 to 40% management. So just thinking across those three buckets. Succinctly, and that's flexibility and variety, right? To have this ability to have a voice at this point in my career, to guide a team, to make sure we're headed in a direction that I seem to be fruitful. And also, as back to your kind of professor comment, the ability to control my work to an extent. I get to kind of choose and pick and choose as long as it's aligned generally with our goals. That is a really nice element of kind of grinding it out for a number of years, is that your voice does get amplified. If you succeed at those kind of lower levels, you get a lot more direction over your day-to-day work as time goes on. For me, the worst part of the job, and it's actually been a positive element of COVID, is the roadshow. Hopping like, racking up like Hilton points is fun in theory, but sleeping in somebody else's bed and just trying to wake up in the morning and be charming and from workshops and things like that, it was hard. It's long days when we go out to universities to engage and deliver workshops, and I do feel like that element of, and it happens just in about any job, when it becomes like you feel like you're selling something, that's a challenge. I'm naturally an inquisitive, curious person, and I love engaging in particular types of conversations, but sometimes we slide into a role where we're trying to advocate hard and sell, and that can be a little bit challenging at times. Where I'm at now is pretty good, and hopefully as the careers progress, you get a little bit more work-life balance, in the sense that perhaps you can start guiding a little bit more of your schedule. I think that work-life balance is hard, just in general. I think for ambitious people, maybe it balances on average. I feel like a lot of the times it's imbalance. There's either too much of one side or too much of the other. So in terms of when I go on vacation, I'm going to drop things, and you're not going to hear from me for a week or two, right? That's my time to recover. But I feel, especially in terms of analytics, consulting, I did private or government work as well. There's always deadlines, right? There's always go, go, go. So this notion of I just kind of leave things. SAS actually has a 35-hour work week, which is kind of nice, right? In terms of their corporate philosophy, pretty great. I don't necessarily know the last time I worked 35 hours, right? So it's the theory behind it. The reality is we have things to do, and we work hard when we can. And I think it's super important to take an exhale when it's time to exhale. So again, I think it can balance on averages, but there'll be times too, like back to my night school example of life is out of balance, and you do that for a little while because you want a long-term gain. Great question. So thinking about my path that I'm currently on, so as a manager, the next step up is senior manager, meaning I get more individuals as part of my team. Maybe I start becoming a manager of managers, but my goal there, just in general, for me personally, is just to become a better manager. There's a lot of literature out there. I don't come from a background, again, my background's economic and public policy. That doesn't necessarily teach you high levels of emotional intelligence and ways to interact with people. So there's this whole domain out there that I was somewhat in tune with as a consultant, but I really have the ability to get better over the next few years. So really kind of sharpening those skills to create these high performance teams. Now, your question regarding what individuals with SAS skill or just analytics in general, I mean, you always grow. I mean, you start typically at kind of a research analyst level. Typically, if you don't have a PhD, you're kind of doing a lot of the data wrangling for a PhD someone, right? Who really can kind of guide the research questions, which is that in and of itself, you can make a pretty darn good salary off. So I did that for like 10 or 15 years, essentially, well, 10 plus before I went back for my PhD, of just being really good at the data analysis stuff. So there is this natural career progression. As you get more comfortable with the modeling, as you pick more and more elements up, you're able to do a lot of more of the higher level modeling. So if you think about that data life cycle, you start kind of the data wrangling, getting things in, and then you get slowly but surely to work up the high level modeling. So for people who are interested in analytics and combining analytics with any field that they kind of their domain expertise, data aren't going anywhere. It's time well invested. So if you're not going to invest in like SAS coding language, invest in some kind of coding language, because you're going to give yourself a huge leg up on the job market, because they're constantly looking for people who can answer interesting questions with data. My biggest piece of advice is become that technical expert first, meaning learn something like statistics or learn something like coding, and then become like a domain expert in terms of knowing under the individual nuances. And the reason why I say that is, number one, you don't want to remain siloed indefinitely. Like the person who understands statistics but doesn't understand why they're running the epidemiological models, that's going to hurt a little bit, just in terms of being able to facilitate that conversation. At least my background, thinking about somebody who knows statistics but doesn't know how to run economic models. But technical skills are what is going to get you a seat at the table faster, right? Just in terms of being able to get that visibility. So in DC, I spent a lot of my time as the guy who ran the models, right? So they would invite me to pretty big meetings earlier in my career, and I'd have a 2-minute speaking role, and it would be about something I knew exactly what I was talking about, because it was the modeling, and then the other people would talk for the next 58 minutes. But it got me that exposure, it got me the lens of the world, and then eventually I started picking up. So back then I was doing antitrust, mergers and acquisition research. I didn't really understand the full nuances of it, but I could at least participate as part of that conversation. So again, get the technical skills, get to the table, and then start picking up the individual domain specific knowledge, if that's where you're at. If you flip it from the other end, if you're already a domain expert, then adding analytics is great. Maybe you already have the seat at the table because of the domain part, and then you can add analytics to make yourself a little bit more dangerous. But for most of us coming out of, say, undergrad, technical skills are a really great place to start. My second part of that is just be adaptable and be prepared to pivot. And you're going to do it a lot. So if we think about algorithms iterating a lot to get to the right answer, that's us too. Like very few of us actually know what we want to do at 22 and then just find that job and just do it for the rest of our lives. Most of us are just constantly kind of optimizing, finding what opportunities come, look at the option set, choose an option, keep moving forward. So as long as you embrace that kind of growth mindset and are open and willing to try new things, I think that you'll have a long and prosperous career.